benefits if you will. Because we'll get to talking and we ain't read no poems. And people wait to hear poems.
You know, this poem is entitled Elizabeth Keckley, 30 Years a Slave and 4 Years in the White House. Elizabeth Keckley was very close to Abraham Lincoln's wife. In fact, this title is actually the title of her autobiography. She was like the first person that Mrs. Lincoln asked for after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater. And there's a very interesting relationship between the two women that, you know, those of you who are history buffs, you know, might want to explore. And this is a poem entitled Elizabeth Keckley, 30 Years a Slave and 4 Years in the White House. Tall man Lincoln, looking out the windows of this White House. I wonder what he's thinking. The war not far from here. Men dying. Death trying to get indoors. I rise before his wife asks for anything. All the dresses I make, everything I touch is black. Sometimes I can't tell the difference between war and slavery. I do my work and only forget what I don't care to remember. Lincoln is not well. He looks old. His wife calls his name every night. It's me who holds her hand after he leaves. She talks to me like I'm a ghost and not a colored woman. You know, that's by Elizabeth Keckley. One thing which over the last couple of years sort of you get pulled into, and I think it's very important for poets to deal with history. You know, you talk about, you know, being African American. You talk about, you know, the Civil War. You talk about the Emancipation, and you know when you get a sense of being in this area, what you'll find is that a lot of the battles and everything took place in this, like Maryland, you know, Pennsylvania, Virginia,
and right here in Maryland, historic Blaine.
Exactly, you know, and it sort of, you know, it sort of makes things a little more real, you know. Just like I always joke with people, I say, yeah, you know, Frederick Douglass ran away, you know, he ran away from Maryland, you know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, he didn't run away from, like, you know, Georgia or Mississippi.
No, he didn't run that far.
And you know, when you put that in, when you put it in perspective, then you really get a sense when an incident takes place, like in some place in Maryland, you realize, yeah, well, how much has things changed? Is Fred still running? You know?
It's funny you say that because, you know, I know that Frederick Douglass was from here in Talbot County, Maryland, but until I read and studied about Frederick Douglass, I didn't know what Talbot County, Maryland was, and I lived in Maryland.
Well, you know, see, this is the thing I tell people, it's so important. We talk about the need for Afrocentric education. We talk about teaching, you know, Black history in the schools, and I always tell teachers, you know, you have to make it living history. You know, I remember going out, for example, to Ballou High School, and I made reference to Frederick Douglass, and I said, well, it's very important for you to read a narrative of Frederick Douglass. But I said it's not enough to simply read a narrative of Frederick Douglass. You got to go up to his house and see the hill. Yeah. See, and I said, you go up to his house and see the hill where you can see all, like, Southeast and Washington. I said, you go up there and you stand on the steps where Frederick Douglass used to stand. You hold his book and you look out across D.C. and you understand the struggle from slavery to freedom. You understood that, you know, where you standing on Frederick Douglass. Yeah, right. He got to that point. He has this big house.
Self-educated too. Self-taught.
Right. But see, what you have to tell a young person, you got to give them the book. You got to give them that text. But you got to realize you're not just reading a book. You got to stand in front of Frederick Douglass' home and understand what's going on. You see, and if you're a teacher, you've got to make it come alive.
That connection.
Right. You can't be teaching Frederick Douglass and not take the kids out to his house.
Right. And right there in Southeast.
Right. Just like, I mean, you know, every time the archive put the Emancipation Proclamation up, you got to take them down and look at it. So you see this piece of paper? This paper wasn't here. You know where you be. You know what I'm saying? And you got to explain people that. You know, I tell people.
And make it real.
Yeah, I tell people that we are like one step ahead of segregation and 2 steps ahead of slavery. You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, and you have to remind young people that if not, you grow up.
They think it was always like this.
Or you grow up and you're not you don't understand it. Now I remember going up to Hamilton College, and I walked into the cafeteria, and they had the sign. It said colored and white. But it was recycling, you know, colored glass. And I said, oh, man, the signs are up. And what was funny is that no one had connected that. I said, you mean you when you see these signs, you don't think of colored and white? You know, you think of recycling? You know what I'm saying? You know, these signs, man, you know, when you see a sign that says colored and you see a sign that says white, it's a history. See, and what happens is that every generation that grows up, it has to be knowledgeable of its past.
Yes.
You know, I mean, and that's very, very important. And what I find is that for people of my age, you know, we can't get upset because a young person comes in and they don't know who Malcolm X was, or they don't know who Roy Wilson.
Well, if we haven't taught them,
well, right? And see what happened. There's a certain arrogance that it's come out. Like, well, you know, I was in the civil rights movement. I was in Selma and this and that. But you know, if you don't teach,
but it's counterproductive.
Well, you have to teach it.
Yeah.
You have to take time and maybe get a little, you know, carpool or bus trip together and take people back to see it. You can't just assume that because you struggle, you know,
that they automatically through osmosis,
right? You know, you put your head here, and it seeps in. It doesn't work that way.
No, so you got to actively.
You have to do that, and that's a process.
I want to